themselves to be led and instructed by the bishops and by the priests of the church. This shows that St. Cyril believed the Messianic age began with the descent of the Holy Spirit into the church, which had already occurred, and could be fulfilled during the rule of the Byzantine Empire. Not only would this allegorical use of Isaiah 11 have been taught to 4th century catechumens in Jerusalem, but also, as it is often today, Isaiah 11 was read on Christmas night in Bethlehem. With the earthly birth of Christ, paradise was brought again to the earth, and in a spiritual or ecclesiastical sense, the paradise of the Messianic age had begun. While it is highly possible that the Christians in Byzantine Jordan were of the persuasion that the millennial age was allegorical and began with the birth of Christ, there is another contemporaneous idea about the chronology of the millennium that was widespread in the Byzantine Empire, especially in its eastern provinces. Based on the Bible, the history of the world was divided into 7,000 years, like the creation of the world was divided into 7 days, with the last 1,000 years being the millennium and the equivalent of the day of rest in the creation. Christians from as early as the 3rd century dated the incarnation of Christ to around 5,500 years after the creation of the world, and thus the second coming and the beginning of the millennium were predicted to happen at the beginning of the 6th century. The Messianic or Millennial Age motifs in the Mosaics of Jordan are nearly all from the 6th century, and several later mosaics in Jordan actually use this creation dating system in their dedicatory inscriptions. Hippolytus in his commentary on Daniel specifically states that the birth of Christ occurred 5,500 years after the creation, and sets the time of Christ's return at the year AD 500. This system of dating the world and the expectation of the millennial era was continued by other writers, such as Julius Africanus, Eusebius, Panodorus, and Ananias. By the 4th and 5th centuries, there were 2 main systems of dating the creation of the world, the Alexandrian and the Byzantine, both of which placed the beginning of the millennium within 10 years of AD 500. After the year 500, when it was apparent that Christ had not returned, there was a tendency toward a new system of dating the millennium, as having begun with Christ's earthly ministry and thus half over. This ties into the allegorical interpretation of the millennium. John Malalas, a 6th century chronicler, seems to have thus argued. He wrote a chronicle that covered the history of the world from creation until the end of the reign of Justinian. In his book 10, he explains Christ was born in the year 5,967 after creation and crucified in the year 6,000 after creation. Near the beginning of book 18, the chronicle, there's a key passage about the date of the millennium. So here he goes through a whole bunch of different dating systems. And the point is the last line of this quote: "The writings of all therefore indicate that the 6th millennium had been passed." Malalas was aware of the conflicting dating systems of the creation, but here is concerned with showing that in any of the given systems, the millennial age had already begun. In general, early Byzantines of the eastern provinces saw the millennial era, or the Messianic age, as either just beginning or already begun, and this would give reason for the Messianic age motifs in the Mosaics of the 5th to 8th centuries. A survey of the Messianic age motifs in the Mosaics illustrates not only how the Messianic age was available in the church, but that it was part of daily life through the placement of the motif and the iconography of the floor mosaics. The Messianic age motif, the lion facing the bull, clearly has precedence in Hellenistic and Roman mosaics, in scenes of hunting and attack, like this one here from Sepphoris, and in Orpheus taming the animals. Some Christians adapted the Orpheus figure as a Christ figure. This fits well with the millennial idea of the Messiah pacifying the animals. Additionally, there is some evidence of the pagan use of the peaceful predator-prey heraldic pair as a symbol of friendship, and unfortunately I do not have an image of this yet. But the Hall of Philia mosaic in Antioch is a depiction of a lion and an ox facing a pomegranate tree with a column superimposed on the tree that has the word philia, friendship, on it. In this mosaic, there are other pairs of wild and tame animals, such as a tigress and a boar, and a leopard and a goat. Whatever specific scene the mosaicist in Jordan used as a precedence or pattern for the Messianic age motif, be it the hunt, Orpheus, or friendship, it is clear that there is nothing Christian about the animals and trees, only their arrangement, placement on the floor, and occasional Isaiah inscription makes the composition original. A lion facing a bull, or a zebu, which is the specific type of humped bull that is depicted in all the Jordanian floor mosaics, is found in Madaba at the Lower Baptistry Chapel and in the Mosaic of Paradise, also in Madaba, in the Mount Nebo area at the Church of St. George and the Church of the Deacon Thomas, and in Gedera of Perea at Zai, and in the Church of the Acropolis at Main. In each of these churches, the placement of the motif is different. However, all of the datable mosaics, except mine, are from the 6th century. We'll just look at a few of these mosaics. Madaba was an episcopal see in the province of Arabia and was a city with many churches and is now known as the Mosaic capital of Jordan. At the Lower Baptistry Chapel in Madaba, the zebu and the lion, each with one paw raised and tails curving above their backs, face each other across a grapevine. Above the lion and the zebu are the dedicatory inscription and baptismal font. Below this pair, also facing each other with the vine between them, are 2 gazelles and 2 rams. The mosaic is dated to about 500 and is one, if not the earliest, depiction of a lion facing a bull in Jordan, and also coincides with the idea that the Messianic age began with the 6th century. A new baptistry chapel with a new mosaic floor was laid only 30 centimeters above the Lower Baptistry Chapel in about 562. Here's a detail of the lion and the bull pair. Therefore, this mosaic with the zebu and the lion in front of the font was only visible for about 50 years. Nonetheless, it is likely that many in the Episcopal See of Madaba were baptized here, and the Messianic Age motif would have been associated with becoming a member of the church. Also in Madaba is the Mosaic of Paradise, which is a favorite today and has been copied in a church built in 2003 at the baptismal site of Jesus by the Jordan River. And this mosaic, we do not know the context of it because it's unclear what it was part of, but it's assumed it was part of a church because it is similar to the composition of these other 2 mosaics in churches. This one right here, there's a close-up of the lion and the bull, and you can see the rabbit looking back at this odd pair because all the other pairs of animals in these compositions are a rabbit with a rabbit or a bird with a bird, but the lion and the bull are the only ones facing each other who are a predator-prey pair. And then this is from the Acropolis town of Nebo, and it's the Church of St. George. And the lion and the bull pair here are in front of this northern side room. And so here's a view. It's like a welcome mat from the door. And you can see a figure praying and a vintager, grapes, peacocks, and then the lion and the bull are shifted so that when you turn to enter the north room, you would see them. And you can only see the paw of the lion remaining, but here's the bull. In Ayun Musa, a valley near the Mount Nebo Monastic Center, in front of the altar in the Church of the Deacon Thomas, a zebu and a lion each stand in front of a tree facing each other. The composition is another square panel with 4 trees, like the Mosaic of Paradise, except here the trees are stacked with 2 trunks rising from one side of the square and 2 trees above. Since the panel is in the sanctuary, it makes sense to have only the trees oriented to one side, because it would have mostly been viewed from the nave or from in front of the altar. Between the 2 upper trees is a ram that was later covered by an altar. When the lion has 2 paws upraised, and the bull seems to be pawing the ground, but it is unlikely that an attack scene would be so close to an altar. In all other churches, peaceful scenes are placed in this area in front of the altar. This lion-bull pair, right in front of the altar, would have been seen by the celebrants as they partook of the Eucharist. The Eucharist, like baptism, was tied to Christ's death and to a worshiper's membership in the church. If the Messianic age was considered to have begun with Christ and to be present on the earth through the church, this is a fitting place for the motif. At Zai al-Garbi, or the ancient village of Zea in Palestina Prima, near modern Salt, the lion and the zebu are depicted in the southwestern corner of the northern chapel. So it's right here. This seems like an obscure place, but the composition would have been seen as the worshippers left the church through the west door, and also as the worshippers entered or exited to the central nave, to or from the northern chapel. With the zebu on the left and the lion on the right, each has 2 paws raised, and they leap toward